It's the return of the Goal Line Stance Show, brought to you by BaltimoreFeather.com, the best and most elite website for all Baltimore Ravens news and opinions. This, of course, is not a Ravens show. You can find that on Nest Talk. The Goal Line Stance Show takes you around the NFL with the latest news from all the teams. Today, we focus on the free agent frenzy that consumed this week's NFL news cycle. Today is March 16th, Saturday, the day before St. Patrick's Day, and the start of this recording took place at approximately 11:15 a.m. I'm Christopher Linfante here with my co-host Nick Sparber. Nick, how are you holding up in the recent days?
Not too well.
Yeah, we'll get into why in a little bit. Obviously, a lot has happened in the NFL, and this is our first podcast in a long time. Hopefully, we'll be making more as well. So today we're just going to go over our free agent frenzy, kind of go through every team, and say what we like about these signings. Maybe a team lost a guy they couldn't afford to lose, and just give our overall impressions here, and then maybe talk about who won the free agency frenzy so far. So we are actually going to start in the NFC today with the NFC East and the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys won their division at 10-6 last year, and they haven't had a fantastic free agency frenzy to start this off season here. They got Christian Covington back, defensive tackle. I'm sorry, not back. They got him from the Houston Texans, but they did lose Cole Beasley, their wide receiver, to the Buffalo Bills. They lost David Irving to a suspension for 4 games. Damian Wilson, outside linebacker, is heading to Kansas City, and Jeff Swaim, the tight end, will head to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they did re-sign DeMarcus Lawrence with a franchise tag. Cameron Fleming is coming back, so is James Olawale, fullback, and Tavon Austin, the speedy wide receiver. Nick, anything here you like from the Dallas Cowboys?
Um, well, obviously re-signing DeMarcus Lawrence is tremendous.
Yeah, well, he has yet to
I
sign the
think
franchise tag, I think, but I,
yeah,
I would imagine. But I did hear he might hold out like Le'Veon did.
but they also re-signed Jason Witten. He came out of
I
retirement.
forgot to add that. Yes, Jason Witten is coming out of retirement for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, how do you think he's going to do next year? I mean, spending a year in the
I
broadcast
don't
booth and
know.
coming back to play.
He's gonna be a Hall of Famer. I think he'll be just fine.
I think he'll probably get like 400 yards, but nothing over that next year.
Uh,
He'll be a decent target for Dak Prescott. The David Irving suspension obviously is going to be a problem for them. David Irving's one of their better players. Cole Beasley to the Buffalo Bills is going to be a big loss for that offense. But they still have Amari Cooper there and other guys. Overall, a really kind of uneventful offseason so far for the Dallas Cowboys. Not a whole lot going on here. Um, just a few re-signings here, a few losses, and only one signing from an outside team in the league. Um, any suggestions to the Dallas Cowboys? Any team needs they should go after, or players off the top of your head, maybe?
no, not really. I think the Cowboys are kind of set. They think they could just go win the NFC East again because how weak the teams are in the NFC East this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. And moving on to the team that did the second best in the NFC East last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're a team that's kind of up and down here, and they're going to be maybe 8-8 next year. With Carson Wentz at the helm, they were really inconsistent and had a lot of bad games and some good games as well. But Nick Foles was really the one to kind of put them into that playoff mode. And now they do lose Nick Foles to the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think? Do you think they should have tried to keep him and replace Carson Wentz with Nick Foles,
I
or
don't
is
think
this
they
a
could have.
smart
I
move?
don't think they could have kept Nick Foles. Just look at the money he got from Jacksonville. That's
What
just
was it, like 88
$88 million
guaranteed?
backup quarterback. That's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, like, but
Well,
do you
obviously
think
not
that?
a good backup for Jacksonville, but
Well, there were rumblings I heard of Eagles fans, debating whether Nick Foles was the
yeah,
answer at
I thought
quarterback.
that they should trade Carson Wentz so Nick Foles could be their starting quarterback, which Carson Wentz is definitely the better option there.
Okay, so you think Carson Wentz is the better option for the Eagles going forward?
Oh
I think
yes,
you're right, just because of his age and Nick Foles' age as well. Nick Foles is what, 30
Carson
now,
Wentz
31.
of
You
injury
can't,
prone
yeah, you can't bank your
and hasn't
future in the
played in the
franchise.
playoffs.
What's that?
Hasn't played in the playoffs.
That is true for Carson Wentz. Nick Foles has been the only one of those quarterbacks to play in the playoffs. But we'll see how it works out for both those teams. We'll talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars in a little bit. The Eagles have had a really kind of weird offseason. They also lost Golden Tate to the New York Giants. Without going into what this means for the Giants, because I know you really want to do that, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. What do you think Golden Tate, being lost from Philadelphia, what does that mean for them?
I don't think it means too much because they still have Alshon Jeffrey. I think, uh, I mean, Golden Tate was kind of like a non-factor when they got him. He was really not really used in the playoffs, and the 2
That
games
is
they
true.
had.
I
Or
mean, he
that
had a few good plays, but that was it, right?
they used Alshon Jeffrey most of the time, and you saw what happened to that
Yeah, that drop in the New
situation.
Orleans game, that could have sent them to the NFC Championship too, but
Yeah,
that was a
and he
mistake.
dropped it.
They also lost Jordan Hicks, their inside linebacker, and Jordan Matthews, wide receiver. So, these
They
are
don't
all
have a
decent
lot of
players.
threats on the outside this year coming up.
What's that?
The Eagles lost a lot of threats on the outside.
Yes, they did. They're going to have to add some I'm not running backs, wide receivers, either in free agency or the draft here. But they did get Malik Jackson, the strong defensive tackle from Jacksonville, and they also picked up an inside linebacker, hopefully to fill the gap that Jordan Hicks is leaving in L.J. Fort from the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do you think of the Malik Jackson signing, though? I think this is,
I thought it
you
was
know,
good. I mean, he's obviously very good,
and
but
they
the
got him on a
price they're
3-year
paying for
deal.
him is kind of absurd.
Yeah, they're paying him $30 million over 3 years, so that's $10 million a year. It is a little high, I think, but I think he will bring a big impact to that defensive line.
At his age, though, it could be very good, very helpful
That
over the
is
next
true.
3 years.
He is only, I mean, he's 29, so he has, he's entering his prime basically. Um, you know,
He's
but
not
they did
actually
lose a lot of other younger
young.
players, Jordan Hicks, Jordan Matthews, and L.J. Fort. So they're gonna have to pick up the slack with those guys. Now, they re-signed cornerback Ronald Darby. I think that was a good move for them. Ronald Darby is, panning out to be one of the better corners in the league, I think. And they did make two trades. Do you want to talk about these trades?
Oh, they traded Michael Bennett to the Patriots for, gosh, the Patriots are going to win another Super Bowl because
A
of it.
fifth round pick for Michael
For a
Bennett.
fifth
Is
round
that
pick,
like,
doesn't make
I'm not
sense.
really sure what to make of this because Michael Bennett isn't as good as he used to
I
be.
don't know if he was making too much money, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that this is a
Michael
really
Bennett's
good
been one of
pickup.
the best defensive ends in the league in the past couple of years, and they just traded for a fifth round pick to the Patriots.
You really think he's one of the best defensive ends in the league right now?
No, he has been come from
That's true.
Seattle, and when he goes to New England, Bill Belichick's gonna make him one of them.
Well, Bill Belichick could pick up a bum off the street and make him an all-pro receiver. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna tell him that he's not gonna do anything with Michael Bennett. I know Michael Bennett, I think is gonna be slowing down a little bit, but he'll get like 8, 9 sacks next year
Yeah.
probably just because it's the Patriots. But they also picked up Deshaun Jackson, and a seventh rounder, and they only gave up a sixth rounder. I think this was a bad mistake by Tampa Bay, only getting a sixth rounder for Deshaun
You
Jackson.
know my feelings about Tampa Bay. They're
We know your feelings from our previous podcasts. Um, but a sixth rounder for Deshaun Jackson, uh, I'm not really sure what they were thinking on that,
no.
in all honesty.
Didn't he have a big contract with Tampa?
He did, but to get only a sixth rounder, you could have at least gotten a
He's
fourth or a
very
fifth.
isn't he very? I think he's old, Deshaun Jackson
Yeah,
now.
but he's still a good receiver, and he's going to be good with this Eagles team. I do think they still have to pick up a wide receiver though, right? Because
Definitely,
Deshaun
because
Jackson
I
is
don't
old.
think Deshaun Jackson can stay healthy for a whole year at his age.
It's funny though that Howie Roseman has really kind of like stopped or like undone all these Chip Kelly moves. Getting rid of
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Jackson, getting rid of Nick Foles. He's bringing them all back, and it's worked out for them so far. So we'll see how Deshaun Jackson in Philly Part 2 works out. Moving on to the next NFC East team, we're going to talk about the Washington Redskins, who had a very eventful free agency
Yeah.
so far. They made a huge signing in Landon Collins. They signed him to a 6-year contract worth $84 million. What do you think about that? As a Giants fan, are they overpaying Landon Collins?
That was a absurd contract. I did not think he was going to get $84 million. Like, he's had struggles with pass coverage. He's good in the box, not as a deep threat over the middle for safety. Like, I don't get why they would pay him $84 million, $86 million or whatever. He's no Troy Polamalu. We know this.
Well, that's obvious. Troy Polamalu's, 1 in a million. He's not Ed Reed either. But I think he's going to be a good fit for them. But I do think they overpaid him a lot, and it was smart for the Giants, I think, to
Look at
let
what Earl
Landon Collins.
Thomas got.
We're going to talk about Earl Thomas. I'm not really sure about that deal. I think it's a good pickup for Baltimore, but the deal might be a little high. But Landon Collins got, I think, a ridiculous deal from Washington here. And moving on to, they lost a lot of players, though. Jamison Crowder heading to the New York Jets. Preston Smith, outside linebacker, to the Packers. Ty Nsekhe, left tackle, to the Buffalo Bills. Clinton Dix, the former Packer, is heading to Chicago. They obviously had to pick up a safety because wasn't coming back. And he wasn't as good as we thought he might be in Washington last year.
I thought
Um,
that the reason they signed Landon Collins was that if they could sign Haha back, they could have one of the dynamic duo in the
that's true,
back
but
that
I mean they
defense.
weren't able to, and Chicago didn't pay HaHa Clinton Dix a
Uh,
lot at all. They paid him 1 year, 3.5 million. So
that's a steal.
yeah,
I think as for Haha.
that's it. I mean, I think HaHa last year wasn't as good as I thought he would be, but he's still, I think, a good safety, and that's a good pickup for Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, the Redskins also picked up Adrian Peterson again, so he'll be coming back. Adrian Peterson really surprised me last year.
Yeah,
Like,
actually.
really surprised me. Um, I did not think he was going to do much of anything. And did he rush for 1,000 yards last year? He
I
was at
think
least
so.
close. Yeah. Um, Finally, with the Washington Redskins, they traded for Case Keenum, quarterback of the Denver Broncos, also Minnesota Vikings, and basically half the teams in the league by now. And they sent Denver a sixth-round pick for the 2019 draft for Case Keenum. What do you think of picking up Case Keenum for Washington?
I mean, that would have never happened if Alex Smith never broke his leg, obviously. But
Alex Smith was having a fantastic year too.
he really that I thought if they were able to keep Alex Smith, they would have won the division. Cowboys would have won it.
Yeah, I think you're right. They were on track to win the division, and Alex Smith,
I
I don't
think
even
Case
want to
Keenum
think
could
about it.
come in and be kind of like Alex Smith did
I think
when
Case
he
Keenum
was
is still a good quarterback. I think
But
he's,
then again, they lost Jamison Crowder, one of their best wide receivers.
yeah. And I'm surprised they haven't gone after other receivers
Yeah.
out here, you know.
Surprised they didn't go after Golden Tate, to be honest.
And they also lost Maurice Harris. I mean, not a huge loss. He's a depth wide receiver, I
Yeah, but
think.
they also have Anquan Boldwin, I believe, still.
I don't think Anquan Bolden's in the NFL at all anymore.
No, he's gone.
No, I'm pretty sure he's retired. Um, he was supposed to play for Buffalo last year and retired, I believe. But I think Case Keenum is a good pickup for them, and it's not going to cost them a whole lot with this contract. It's only going to be a six-round pick they're giving up, and Alex Smith may never play again. I mean, I don't even want to think about
Yeah,
that injury
that
again.
was an awful injury. That was.
Yeah, I feel bad. I always liked Alex Smith. I always thought he was very underrated, so that really sucks, though. But they're going to bring in Case Keenum and see if he can get it done next year. Okay, moving on to your New York Giants.
I don't
They
want.
gained, first of all, a big L, I would say, number one.
Yeah.
Number
That,
two, they gained Golden Tate, okay, Marcus Golden, defensive end from Arizona, and Antoine Bethea, one of the underrated safeties, but I think he is getting a little older now. And they did lose, you put in here your fandom.
I,
Uh, Landon Collins, Jamon Brown, the guard, B.W. Webb, the quarterback, Mario Edwards, defensive tackle, Josh Moreau, defensive tackle. They re-signed Antonio Hamilton, safety, Tony Lippett, cornerback, and Zach DiAsi, the long snapper. But they also traded away Odell Beckham Jr. to the Browns for a first-round pick in 2019 and a third, and Jabril Peppers. And they also traded away Olivier Vernon to the Browns and a fourth-round pick to them to only gain Zach Zeitler and a fifth-round pick. I laid everything out for you, Nick. Take your shot at the Giants, whatever you want to say.
I'm gonna save my rant till the
Yeah,
end.
save your rant, but like, give me your raw, like, what what do you
I
think
don't.
about this?
I don't understand where the Giants are heading. I
Okay.
just don't under. I don't. I really don't. They let Landon Collins walk. They trade OBJ for a bag of beans. I mean, come on. I and then they signed Golden Tate. Like, are you rebuilding or are you
Yeah,
trying
are
to
they
get at the
they're in
playoffs? I
this
don't
weird
understand.
limbo. Like they're trying to compete, but also they're like trying to rebuild, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense,
It doesn't
especially
make
with
a lot
Eli
of sense.
Manning at the helm.
Like trade Olivier Vernon. Okay, he had a
Well,
big
I
contract.
can get Olivier Vernon because his contract was
He's been
big.
bad too. He hasn't
Yeah,
been great.
yeah. But Odell Beckham Jr. I don't think makes much sense here.
Not at all. Odell Beckham Jr. is one of the best receivers in the league.
To be
And
fair to Dave Gettleman, though, I mean that's probably not what you want to say right now, but he did get a lot more for Odell Beckham Jr. than the Pittsburgh Steelers got for Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown's also third.
Um, but what do you think, without the losses here, any of these signings that you like, Marcus Golden, Antoine Bethea, or Golden Tate here?
I think Golden Tate. I mean, it's a glaring need that we needed, to be honest, since we traded OBJ. But I just don't understand the direction of the franchise.
I think Golden Tate's a good pickup, um, you know, regardless of, whether or not they had Odell Beckham. I think it would have been really good with Odell Beckham, and they should have,
Yeah, they would have had
drafted
pretty decent, one really good receiver and two very decent
in
receivers.
Sterling Shepard, right? You're referring to?
Yeah, and Golden Tate.
Yeah.
And
Um,
Ingram at tight end.
and with the running back Saquon Barkley, they could have had the next trio if they drafted Dwayne Haskins, right? With Odell Beckham,
Doesn't
Saquon, and
don't
Dwayne Haskins. But I don't think it's meant to be now. I mean,
uh,
maybe they will draft Dwayne Haskins at 6, but uh, maybe they want to move up to 1 and get Kyler Murray, which
if
I don't know about that.
they do that, Chris, I swear.
I mean, we'll get into Kyler Murray because we do have him on our little draft, our end of the show draft notes here. Um, but I don't really think that'd be a good idea for the Giants. Let's put it that way to
No.
start. Um, I think that's it for the Giants here. Their re-signings, Antonio Hamilton, Tony Lippett. I mean, these aren't, huge
I mean,
re-signings.
Zach Zeitler I thought was good for Olivia Vernon, to be honest with you.
I think so. I think that was a good trade. The Olivia Vernon trade was a good one. I think the Odell Beckham was a terrible one, and that's going to be the one that Dave Gettleman's going to be remembered for a long time, unless somehow they win the Super Bowl next year and
That
everybody's
guy,
like genius.
Dave Gettleman, it's not that he traded OBJ, it's that he lied to the fans.
Yeah, he said that what we didn't
We didn't
draft
sign
him,
him
we
to
didn't
trade
sign him
him.
to trade him.
Does this? Like, come on, guy. Who do you think you
It's
are?
really interesting because a few weeks ago I was hearing rumblings out of Cleveland, and people were saying that Cleveland was trying to trade for Odell Beckham. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! That's not going to happen. And then
Yeah.
it turned out to be the Olivia Vernon one, so I thought, okay, it's over. Well, it wasn't over, to say the least. But moving on to our next division here, let's get out of the NFC East. It's a little toxic with those Giants in there. NFC North last year, the Chicago Bears were the winners, and I don't believe any other team made the playoffs from the NFC North. Did the Vikings?
Think so.
No,
No.
they didn't. The Chicago Bears were the only one. They won the division. They picked up in this offseason Buster Screen from the New York Jets, the cornerback, Cordero Patterson, the former Viking and Raider, and then New England Patriots wide receiver. They picked up Mike Davis, running back from the Seattle Seahawks, HaHa Clinton Dix from the Washington Redskins, Ted Larson, a guard from Miami, and Marvin Hall Jr., wide receiver from the Atlanta Falcons, one of the faster wide receivers in the league. But they lost Adrian Amos, their safety, Josh Bellamy, wide receiver to the New York Jets. Bellamy is also a good special teams player. Eric Kush, guard to the Cleveland Browns. Kevin White, wide receiver to the Arizona Cardinals. But they re-signed Nick Williams, defensive tackle. I think their pickups, I think, are good here, right? They lose Adrian Amos. They pick up HaHa Clinton Dix. And if HaHa can get back to what he was in Green Bay, I think that's an upgrade. What do you think about that?
Obviously, if he could get back to that, he'd be an upgrade. And to be honest, the rich got richer. The Chicago Bears defense got kind of better, and they were one of the best in the league.
Yeah, Buster Screen, he's a veteran. I think that's a good pickup for depth. I think they lost Kevin White. That's not really a
That's not really
big loss. He was a draft bust. He's like Brashad Perryman to us. Josh Bellamy.
Allen Robinson.
What about Allen Robinson? I believe
still
they still have him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Josh Bellamy, special teams guy. They probably wanted to keep him, but the Jets wanted him more, I guess.
Yeah,
Adrian Amos might sting for them though, going to the Packers. That rivalry there. That might sting for a Chicago Bears fan.
Yeah.
But no, I think the Chicago Bears had a decent offseason so far, nothing crazy. I think Cordell Patterson's gonna be a good pickup for them too.
I thought
really
maybe they could have tried to re-sign Eric Kush, but
yeah, I thought they might do that as well, but doesn't But they did get Ted Larson from Miami to replace him at guard.
Yeah, but I feel like that Eric Kush was more of like a chemistry guy with the front five.
Yeah, I think that probably was what they wanted to do, but Cleveland pried him away.
Yeah.
Cleveland's having a pretty good offseason to say the least.
A minute.
But I mean, they didn't shell out a lot of money either, right? Their highest average per year salary they gave out was to Buster Screen for $5.3 million. So they're very aware of the cap. I think what they're doing with Matt Nagy there as head coach is going to be phenomenal over the next few years, and I think they're on the right track with this offseason. So good job to the Chicago Bears.
And I honestly think Mitch Trubisky's starting to develop more.
Yeah, I thought Mitch Trubisky would be a draft bust.
No?
First year I was kind of like, oh, maybe I was right. Second year, no way, he's pretty darn good, and he's going to develop into one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
Definitely.
I can't wait to see it. He's a very good player. Moving on to the Vikings, they came in second. Their quarterback, Kirk Cousins, has that huge contract. So free agency, not a whole lot going on for them. Don't have a huge amount of money to spend, but they did pick up Shamar Stephen, defensive tackle from the Seattle Seahawks. Didn't pay him that much though. His annual salary is $4.15 million over 3 years. They lost Sheldon Richardson to the Cleveland Browns and Latavius Murray, the running back, to New Orleans. And they somehow re-signed Anthony Barr.
That was a
Did you see that story? He was about to sign with the Jets, and then, according to people,
like
he got
sick.
physically sick from thinking about going to the Jets. And I tweeted out something like, well, I think most Jets fans would agree, about that. Um, Not a huge eventful offseason. I think Anthony Barr is the biggest, obviously, pickup for the Minnesota Vikings. They signed him to a 5-year, $67.5 million deal, $33 million total guaranteed. Um, I think it's a good pickup to bring him back. He's getting paid 13.5 million, but he's one of the better linebackers in the league. Um, Shamar Stevens not a huge pickup for them, but they had to fill in a roster hole with Sheldon Richardson gone, and Latavius Murray going to New Orleans won't be that huge. They still have Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. Anything really stand out for you for the Minnesota Vikings here?
I thought it would have been. I mean, Sheldon Richardson, he's very good defensive tackle.
Well, that's true, yeah. He was with
Cleveland
the
Browns
Jets first,
before.
right?
What?
He was with the Jets before Minnesota?
Yeah, and then I think they traded him. I don't. Yeah, then they traded him to Minnesota or
Hmm.
something like that, or they signed him.
Yeah, I just remember he left the Jets. I don't remember why.
Yeah, he left the Jets.
But I think that's going to be a big loss for them on that front seven.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big body defensive tackle, big run stuffer in there. Um, again, not a huge eventful offseason for the Minnesota Vikings yet.
They
They
don't
were
have a
close
lot
to
of money
competing
because of
last year.
Kirk Cousins anymore.
What about Kirk Cousins?
They don't have a lot of money to spend anymore because of that contract.
Yeah, that contract I think was a really terrible one, honestly. Um, I don't know why they paid Kirk Cousins that kind of guaranteed money when they could have re-signed Teddy Bridgewater for peanuts and probably would have performed the same way. Kirk
Yeah.
Cousins' year last year wasn't very good to say the least. It was okay, but it wasn't what he was being paid for.
$27 million worth.
Yeah. Um, Moving on to the Packers, had a really bad year last year, very unpacker-like. They have signed quite a few players, actually. They went out and grabbed Ravens outside linebacker Zadarius Smith on a, get this, 4-year, $66 million contract, annual salary of
Players
16.5
are
million.
getting ridiculous contracts this year.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Zadarius Smith, if I can give a side note here, is he only had 8.5 sacks last year. His second best year is 5.5 sacks, and they're giving him 66 million over 4 years. I think that's a little bit of an
Check
overpayment,
to
at
get
least.
better because he's still young.
He has, yeah, he's only 26, but I don't know. They're just paying him and hoping he pans out, basically. Um, but they also, they're not done with their pickups here. They got Preston Smith, linebacker from the Washington Redskins. They picked off Adrian Amos from the Chicago Bears, and they got Billy Turner, the guard from Denver Broncos. They re-signed Mercedes Lewis and Geronimo Allison, wide receiver. What do you think of this Packers free agency so far?
They definitely went defensive heavy because they lost a lot of people last year by the trade deadline.
Yeah, and
Ha
their defense was,
guys.
not very good last year.
Last year, to be honest,
Mm.
they were giving up like 20 points per game, and Aaron Rodgers' arm was like falling off basically.
Yeah, yeah, he had a decent year last year. Don't get me wrong, but the rest of the team was just,
There was a lot of turmoil in that locker room too last year.
yeah. I don't know what's going on with them. They fired Mike McCarthy. I think that's honestly a mistake. People will probably disagree with me on that, but I think Mike McCarthy's a proven coach.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I don't know. You know, I'm not gonna say Aaron Rodgers is a locker room problem, but I think there was tension between him and McCarthy there, and the Packers were ultimately siding with their quarterback, which to me I wouldn't do. I would always side with the head coach, but that's what they did. But I do think their offseason has been pretty good so far. I think they have cap space to spend, so they're gonna go pick out some of these guys, and give them ridiculous contracts just to rebuild this defense. And I think re-signing Mercedes Lewis was a really good idea. He's a good tight end. And they didn't, spend a whole lot on him, only 2.1 million for 1
They still
year.
have Jimmy Graham too.
They do still have Jimmy Graham, that is true. So, I expect them to get back to at least 8-8 next year. I don't know if they'll compete for the playoffs, but they should be a decent team again.
Yeah, they're not ready. I don't think they can compete with the Chicago Bears.
No, the Chicago Bears are going to be the super team of the NFC North again next year. But, leading on to the bottom dwellers of the NFC North, who are trying to turn the Detroit Lions into the Detroit Patriots, obviously.
Yeah.
we have Coach Matt Patricia there, former defensive coordinator for the Patriots, and he picked up Trey Flowers on a huge deal from New England. They're giving him a 5-year deal worth $90 million, an annual salary of $18 million. Do you think that's a little bit of an overpayment?
I mean, that's something that obviously Bill Belichick would never do.
No, Bill
And
Belichick, like, rather just, draft a guy in the seventh
yeah,
round than pay that
exactly.
kind of money.
Stud.
Hmm.
And I mean, they needed to do that to make sure they got him because he was one of the highly coveted free agents in the class.
He's one of the better edge rushers now, and he's only 26.
Exactly. So I really don't think it was that bad.
I think it's an overpayment, but I think they have a lot of money to blow. So, I mean, when you're a losing team and you have like, tons and tons of
And
cash,
if you're the Lions, you got to make sure you get them. Like you're in Detroit, you're not in
yeah,
New York.
you're wasting, Matt Stafford's career here. You got to hurry up a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so, but they also picked up an interesting pick, I think, Jesse James from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think a lot of people really know about Jesse James, but I think he's a pretty good tight end.
Yeah.
Can be versatile, has some blocking ability, has some receiving ability. He's just an overall good hybrid guy. They picked up Danny Amendola, wide receiver from the Miami Dolphins, former longtime Patriots wide receiver. Justin Coleman to beef up their defense as a cornerback from the Seattle Seahawks. On their offensive line, they add Ode Abushi, guard from the Arizona Cardinals, and finally they added Andrew Adams, safety from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, your favorite team. Um, they lost Bruce Ellington, to wide receiver to the New England Patriots, and they re-signed Zach Zenner, the running back. Any other signings, losses here that you really want to talk about
I
from?
mean, I think they're really becoming the Patriots with Danny Amendola now,
Yeah.
Trey Flowers,
Well, I mean, it's really interesting
Bruce
about the
Ellington.
Patriots
They lost
because
though.
the Lions are trying to succeed by getting a bunch of Patriots guys, but that's really never worked before.
Never worked,
Every time a Patriot guy goes somewhere, whether
and they're not as good.
yeah, I mean Matt Castle was the backup for Brady a long time ago, and then went to Kansas City on a monster deal, and he's Matt Castle. Um, it never seems to work. All these Patriots players leaving, so it's really just Brady and Belichick. I think are really these huge football minds, controlling this team. But I do like Matt Patricia. I think he's a very good coach, and I think he might be able to pull it off this time. Maybe be the only guy who can get
Oh,
these Patriots
I-
players to perform outside of New England. Um, I think Bruce Allington's a bit of a loss for them, but
he'll
with
become
Danny Amendola,
the Patriots next year.
yeah, he'll be a good player with the Patriots. Fit into that offense with 57-year-old Tom Brady at this point.
They'll win
Um,
the Super Bowl. It's all right.
yeah. Okay. Well, now we're gonna move out of the NFC North, and we're gonna head down south to New Orleans. New Orleans Saints were the heavy Super Bowl favorites in midseason, but obviously fell apart against the Los Angeles Rams.
I don't even
Uh,
get into that. They should have
with Roger
played Patriots.
Goodell's, army of refs not doing their job again. Um, I don't blame the refs. I just blame really the rule book being too
I
complicated,
blame the
honestly.
refs.
Um, but they've had a decent offseason so far. They picked up Malcolm Brown, defensive tackle from New England. They picked up Latavius Murray, running back from the Minnesota Vikings, and Mario Edwards. I think it's really interesting that they went after Murray and did not keep Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram ended up going to Baltimore on a 3-year deal. They also lost Alex Okafor to Kansas City, their defensive end. And they re-signed Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback, and Craig Robinson, inside linebacker. Did you see the news with Teddy Bridgewater almost going to Miami?
Yeah, I thought he would go to Miami to become the starter. I don't understand his thought
Well,
process there.
here's what I understand. The Saints basically said to him that he's going to be the starter after Drew Brees, and he was going to sign there, and then I think he wanted to test the market, and they gave him a 1-year, $7.5 million deal to stay. So they're committing to him. And I think
So they're assuming Drew Brees is leaving this year.
my assumption is that Drew Brees is going to leave after this year, just based on the contract they gave Teddy Bridgewater. That's my assumption. I mean, I don't have any source on this. This is just what I think.
hmm
It makes sense to me because Drew Brees is he 40 now?
Yeah, I think he's.
Yeah, so he's not going to stay forever.
He's
Unlike
not
Tom Brady, he's not going to play until he's 64. So, but I really like the Teddy Bridgewater pickup. Teddy Bridgewater, I keep saying over and over again, is an underrated quarterback, very smart quarterback. If not for that freak injury, he would have been the long-term starter at Minnesota. So this is, I mean, it's a great way to kind of transition from Drew Brees. He's
One
not
of the
going to be
best quarterbacks
Brees,
of all
but he's going
time.
to be a pretty
Yeah.
good quarterback. So
Teddy Bridgewater.
yeah, this is going to be a good move for them in the long term. What do you think about them? Replacing Mark Ingram with Latavius Murray. Was that a good move, you
I
think?
don't really get why. Latavius Murray was injured a couple of years ago and couldn't play with the Vikings. That's why he lost his job to Dalvin Cook, and now they sign him to 3 years and let Mark Ingram walk, who's been with the Saints for whatever
Forever,
his whole
basically.
career. I don't understand it.
Mark Ingram is the second leading rusher on the Saints. He's only
Exactly.
like 60 some yards behind the first leading rusher. So
It didn't make sense to me.
yeah, I don't understand why they got rid of Mark Ingram, but I'm happy he's in Baltimore. I think that was a really good pickup, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I think that they're also trying to beef up this defensive line with Malcolm Brown from the Patriots and Mario Edwards from the Giants. And they're not spending a whole lot of money on anybody. They only gave Brown $5 million per year. They're only giving Edwards 2.5 per year. So they're being salary cap conscious here. So I expect the Saints to compete again next year.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, there's no question about that. Um, Moving on to the Falcons. They picked up James Carpenter, the guard from the New York Jets, Jamone Brown, another guard from the New York Giants, Ken John Barner, running back from the Carolina Panthers, and Luke Stocker, tight end from the Tennessee Titans. They also re-signed Grady Jarrett with a franchise tag, their defensive tackle. But they did lose a lot of players. They lost Robert Alford, cornerback, to the Arizona Cardinals. They lost Tevin Coleman to the San Francisco 49ers, Brian Poole, cornerback, to the New York Jets, Brooks Reed, defensive end, to the Arizona Cardinals, Marvin Hall Jr., the speedy wide receiver they lost to the Chicago Bears, and Justin Bethel, cornerback slash special teamers, to the Baltimore Ravens. Um, it kind of feels like there's like a not a mass exodus out of Arizona, out of Atlanta, but there's a lot of players leaving. Do you think that they're like kind of concerned with the way Atlanta's heading, or is this just all about the money at this point?
I think it's all about the money. Tevin Coleman got a pretty decent deal with the Niners, I think.
Yeah.
But I think he also believes in what the Niners are future. It looks pretty bright over there, I would say. With
Well,
Kyle
Kyle
Shanahan.
Shanahan's there, and he was Tevin Coleman's offensive coordinator for a few years,
Yep.
right?
And
Yeah.
I think that's a gaping hole losing Tevin Coleman if I'm a Falcons fan.
Yeah,
Because
Tevin Coleman's a really
Devontae
good running
Freeman's
back.
never there for a whole year. And
Yeah,
Tevin Coleman is one of the best. Is I would say one of the best. Is probably the best backup running back in the league.
I agree with you on that 100%. Tevin Coleman is the best backup running back.
And now he's gonna be a starter in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean I mean they're building a really nice team in San Francisco. I don't know if I predicted them to go to the playoffs last year in our podcast, and then
Yeah,
what was
that
it, week two, Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL, and that went down the drain. But if Jimmy G's healthy, they got a good offense to go, and they're rebuilding a defense there. I think they're going to be okay. Um, but I think Atlanta's probably not going to compete again next year unless they make some moves. But I think it was smart for them to get Grady Jarrett back, defensive tackle. He's a good player for them, but he is going to command a lot of money. Um, Overall, I think that they're going to need to make some signings or some good draft picks to kind of rebound from
yep.
these losses here.
They're gonna need to draft a good running back.
Yeah, in the second or third round at least. Okay, moving on. We have the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are a really strange team. Last year they started 4-2, and then I think they got to 5-2, right?
I think so.
And then it just completely collapsed for no reason at all. I mean, they didn't lose Cam Newton until late in the year, like week what, like 16. They didn't,
They just shut
lose
him down when he got
Christian
hurt.
McCaffrey. It just collapsed. Everything collapsed, and I have no idea why. I just don't understand. Um, they have a mass exodus, if anybody's got one so far. They only gained Matt Paradis, the center from Denver, which is a good pickup. Matt Paradis is a good center. I think he was the best on the market. But they lost Thomas Davis, their longtime pass rusher. I think they cut him, actually, and he ended up with the Chargers. The Indianapolis Colts gave Devin Funchess a $10 million deal, according to Spot Track. Other outlets are reporting it's $13 million. Do you think that's a good idea, or like
Uh,
what's going on?
the Colts have a lot of cap
I mean,
room, so
what's interesting about the
I
Colts is
don't know.
they made the playoffs last year and have $100 million to spend. So I
They
guess if any
really,
team's gonna do it, they're the ones that are gonna pay Devin Funchess 10,
yeah,
13 million or whatever it is. I just It's obviously overvaluing Devin
yeah,
Funchess. So
obviously.
I mean, come on. Um, They signed Chandler Catanzaro, the kicker of the Jets. They signed David Mayo, inside linebacker. Is he related to that other Mayo, Gerard Mayo, who
I don't
played
know.
for the Patriots a long time ago? And Kenjon Barner, the running back from Atlanta, or a running back from Atlanta. They also re-signed Darrell Williams, right tackle, and Taylor Heineke, who impressed as the backup quarterback for Cam Newton in those last few games. Anything stick out to you for the Carolina Panthers here?
I just think that Matt Paradis was a good signing, basically,
Yeah.
because they need to protect Cam Newton. Very he's no longer a very young quarterback, and he can't run like he used to and dive and do all that crazy stuff for much longer. He's got
Yeah.
to have to stick in the pocket a little bit longer now.
Yeah, take a lesson from RG3, right? Stay in the
Yeah,
pocket. Um, yeah, I think that's a good signing, but losing Thomas Davis, I think is going to be a big blow to them in that locker room. Thomas Davis,
yeah,
you
he
know,
was definitely influential in that locker room,
I think he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award a few years ago.
and
So,
they
I mean,
and they cut him.
this is not, an insignificant loss, but he was getting pretty old for an outside linebacker. He was 36, so, but he did sign a 2-year deal with Los Angeles, the Chargers. Moving on to your favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They're a
Um,
joke.
You know, I saw them play against the Ravens last year. I went to the game, and there were Buccaneers fans in the stadium, basically, you know, telling us that it's okay if we win. It'll just help them, fire everybody because they're a dumpster fire organization. Um, but
I
yeah,
do like their head coach signing.
who do they get for head coach? I forget.
There.
Oh, Bruce Arians. Yeah, that's a really big pickup. Bruce Arians, one of the best coaches in the league. Maybe he'll fix Jameis Winston. Imagine if Jameis Winston makes the Pro
Yeah,
Bowl
that's
next year.
great if he's still stealing crab legs.
Okay. Well, the Tampa Bay
Not gonna get into
Buccaneers.
that right now.
Yeah, let's not get back into the crab legs like we used to. But they signed punter Bradley Pinion from the San Francisco 49ers. They signed Shaquille Barrett, outside linebacker of the Denver Broncos. My favorite man, Brashad Perryman from the Cleveland Browns. Deion Buchanan, inside linebacker of the 49ers. And Earl Watford, guard from Arizona. But they lost Quan Alexander, who signed a mega deal with those 49ers. Adam Humphries, who was an impressive wide receiver, they lost him to Tennessee. They lost Adarius Taylor, their inside linebacker, to Cleveland, and Andrew Adams, the safety, to the Chicago Bears. And they had a lot of re-signings. They re-signed backup quarterback Ryan Griffin. They re-signed Cairo Santos, kicker Kevin Minter, inside linebacker Raheem Nunez Rochez, defensive tackle, and Devontae Harris, cornerback. What sticks out to you about these Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I think that they lost more than they
I
gained.
mean,
Are you with me on this?
yeah, definitely. Quan Alexander's a really good linebacker, but for that price,
Yeah, and his injury
no one's
problems
staying in
too.
Tampa Bay for that price.
Yeah, and the injury problems, I think, were kind of a deterrent for them
Yeah,
re-signing him
yeah.
to what San Francisco wanted to give him. I think Adam Humphries
Humphries is
isn't.
a big loss because now
Yeah,
they're only going to throw to Mike Evans.
yeah, and they're gonna
Not a big deal.
double and triple team him.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him out there. He and Saquon Barkley are gonna not have a lot of fun next year.
Saquon Barkley's, I don't even want that guy's going to be limping to his cars after games.
He's gonna carry for like 500 times a game.
Yeah.
Um, Adarius Taylor, I think, you know, not insignificant on that linebacker core there.
But he's not Quan
Um,
Alexander.
no, but they did pick up Deion Buchanan, who's a pretty good inside linebacker. And I think with the Brashad Perryman signing, it's actually pretty good. He did well with Cleveland, and I think he was going to sign with Cleveland again, but after the Odell Beckham trade, he didn't want to do it because obviously he wasn't going to get as much playing time
Yeah.
anymore. So I think him signing here with Tampa Bay is going to be good for him and the organization. Um, I think that they're not done. I think they need to address needs in the draft. Um, I think that Bruce Arians, though, is a very big pickup at head coach. I mean, I cannot understate how important Bruce Arians is going to be to this organization. Um,
You got to
he'll,
turn him around.
yeah, he'll turn this team around. If anybody can do it, Bruce Arians can do it.
And Todd Bowles on the as a defensive coordinator again.
Todd Bowles is with them? I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
he's defensive coordinator.
That's good. Yeah,
Bowles was the defensive coordinator with the Cardinals when
that's
Bruce
right.
was
Yeah,
head coach. So
yeah,
I think
reuniting
I think
those
they
two.
could be good.
Yeah, I think it's a good pickup as head coach and defensive coordinator there. And moving on to the Rams, the team that went to the Super Bowl last year, they picked up my guy Eric Weddle from the Baltimore Ravens, but they also lost Roger Saffold, guard, and LaMarcus Joyner, the safety, to the Oakland Raiders. Not a whole lot happening at all for these Los Angeles Rams. What do you think of the Eric Weddle signing?
I think it was good. They needed a safety.
Yeah.
But they really need. They didn't have a lot of holes. They went to the Super Bowl for a reason.
Hmm.
They didn't have a lot of holes to fill. With their defense was rock solid last year, even though they're gonna lose Ndamukong Suh
Yeah.
probably.
Well, he hasn't signed anywhere yet.
No,
But
but
I do think they will end up losing him. I think Eric Weddle's an upgrade from LaMarcus Joyner anyway for them. And I think losing Roger Saffold might be a problem, but I think overall they'll be able to address that need soon, probably in the draft. Um, Seattle Seahawks also made the playoffs last year. They gained Jason Myers from the Giants and Mike Iupati from the guard from the Arizona Cardinals. He was there a long time actually. Um, they lost Earl Thomas. Their biggest free agency loss is Earl Thomas to the Baltimore Ravens. They lost cornerback Justin Coleman. Shamar Stephen, defensive tackle, goes to the Vikings. Mike Davis goes to the Bears. Brett Hundley, quarterback, the backup quarterback, goes to Arizona, and J.R. Sweezy, guard, goes to Arizona. What do you think now that the Legion of Boom is officially gone? The last remaining member, Earl Thomas, is out. What do you think? What's the
uh,
next plan?
I think this was gonna be the end of that Seahawks sort of run that they had. It was a special couple years there with
Yeah,
the Legion of Boom. Russell Wilson was unbelievable, but now that his contract's gonna expire after this year, I think Seahawks are gonna try and rebuild. I think.
yeah. They tried to rebuild last year, but somehow made the playoffs. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
they were. I thought for sure they were gonna go like 6-10, and then they go what, like 10-6. And I'm like,
Yeah,
that's Pete Carroll for you,
there was a lot of bad teams though last year.
That's true. But I think that they performed very well last year. Maybe they'll surprise us again. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this upcoming year. With some of these losses, unless they have a really, really, really good draft. But they also re-signed KJ Wright and Michael Kendricks, two outside linebackers that make a difference for them. TJ Fluker, the guard, and Frank Clark, their defensive end. They franchise tagged him.
They franchise tagged him.
Yeah.
I think
Um,
he's gonna hold out supposedly too. I don't think he.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys holding out now because of what Le'Veon Bell did. And I can't wait to talk about Le'Veon Bell, but we'll wait till we get to the Jets for that. Um, Anything else you want to say on the Seattle Seahawks offseason so far?
No, no.
Okay. I like the Mikey Iupati pickup, but he is getting older. Obviously, the losses here. Earl Thomas is going to be a huge loss for them, but I don't think he wanted to come back at all, basically. Um, I know he flipped one of the teams off against Arizona last year. Was he flipping off Arizona or was he flipping off Seattle? I don't remember.
I th- I, I don't know. That was
Being
just
carted off. I
yeah. I don't know
forget.
who he flipped off.
Yeah. But moving on to the 49ers, a team definitely on the rise here. They made a lot of pickups. They picked up Quan Alexander, who we just talked about from Tampa Bay, Tevin Coleman from the Falcons, Jason Verrett, cornerback from Los Angeles, the Chargers, David Mayo, inside linebacker from the Panthers, Jordan Matthews, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Raheem Mostert, that they just picked up right before we started recording here from the Cleveland Browns, backup running back. The only loss they have is Bradley Pinion, the punter. They re-signed Jimmy Ward, free safety, Antoine Exum, um, another free agent, not free agent, free safety. Mark, I'm going to butcher this name, Nizoka, outside linebacker. Kyle Nelson, the long snapper, and they franchise tagged Robbie Gold. Never a bad idea to franchise tag a kicker if you have to because they don't get paid much anyway.
Exactly.
Um, I think that they're winning the offseason so far.
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, they have all these pickups, and
And they
they've
traded
lost
for
a
D
punter,
Ford.
and they traded for T Ford. That's right, I forgot to mention that from the Chiefs, and only gave up a second round pick. I mean, second round pick's something, but D Ford's a very good pass rusher. So this team is definitely on the rise, and I think that they're winning.
I think they're
Um,
gonna win this NFC West next year.
you think they're gonna beat out the Los Angeles Rams next year for the NFC West?
No, never mind. I forgot about
Yeah,
it.
you forgot. I mean, it's possible. I think they'll make the playoffs. I said that last year, obviously, but
I think
with a
they.
healthy Jimmy G, they will make the
I
playoffs.
forgot about the Rams.
Yeah. To be fair, after that Super Bowl, a lot of people forget about the Rams.
They were a joke in that Super Bowl. They should never made it.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting though that we have a lot of coaches just being picked up just because they worked with what's that guy's name?
Sean
Sean
McVay.
Sean McVay, yeah. Just because they work with
They
Sean
think
McVay.
that they're gonna get another Sean McVay out of
Yeah.
him.
I hate to break it to these teams, but it's very very, very rare to pick up a
That guy
Sean
remembers
McVay.
plays from 5 years ago, and
Yeah,
that's not.
there's a video, right? He's
Yeah.
like when he was with the Redskins, they're asking him like, "Oh, it was 3rd and 4 with 12 minutes left in the
Oh,
game.
I
What'd
threw
you do?"
a
He's like, "Oh,
slant to
yeah,
someone. Something.
we
I don't.
had Kirk Cousins throw a slant to Jamison Crowder for a touchdown from the 6 yard line." I'm like, "What? I mean, come on." But I really like the Jordan Matthews pickup actually. I think that he's going to add to this wide receiver core for Jimmy G. Tevin Coleman is going to be a huge pickup for them. Take a little bit of pressure off Jimmy
And
G.
they have a top 10 pick again, right?
I believe so. I believe they do. So, I mean, the 49ers,
Their
um,
defense is coming together now too. Their defensive front with Solomon Thomas now. That was a top 5 pick a couple years ago.
yeah, Solomon Thomas is going to
Who's
become a
the
good
guy from
player.
Oregon they drafted?
I think it was DeForest Buckner, right?
Forrest Buckner. He's gonna
You
be
know, a
good.
lot of people don't really know about DeForest Buckner, but guys are saying, from around the league, guys always take notice of him, and he, gets the job done in the trenches. I just looked. The San Francisco 49ers have the number 2 pick.
Oh
If
man,
Arizona picks Kyler Murray,
they're
they're getting
getting
Nick
Nick
Bosa.
Bosa. That'll be crazy.
That would be insane. They would instantly jump from like 4-12 they were last year to like 10-6, 11-5. I mean, that would be huge. Unless, Oakland. I heard Oakland wants Kyler Murray. They might trade up to number 1 to get
Then
him.
what are you gonna do with Derek Carr?
I don't know. I mean, it's John Gruden. He's gonna do what he wants, but
Send him to the Giants. I'll take Derek Carr.
yeah, actually, that would not be a bad idea. But that'd have to be a three-way trade there. Um, but yeah, I think not Kansas City, San Francisco here is definitely winning this offseason
Oh,
so
without a
far.
doubt.
And Arizona, who I mean, I don't really know what they're doing. They hired, um, what was that guy's name? They hired the head
Oh,
coach
the guy from Texas Tech. I forgot his
Texas Tech.
name.
I forget his name. Um, but I don't really like that pickup at all. I mean, he had like his best year at
I
Texas
don't
Tech was
get. I don't.
75.
Oh, Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury,
They
best year at
hired him
Texas Tech,
because of Patrick Mahomes. Like what?
and he was friends with Sean McVay. So
Yeah, but still, how does that? I don't get it.
I have to say something here. My honest belief is that Patrick Mahomes was not ready to play in the NFL until Andy Reid taught him what to do. I think Andy Reid made Patrick Mahomes more of what he is than
Oh,
Kingsbury did.
definitely.
So to think that he's gonna make Josh Rosen or Kyler Murray or whoever you want to have your quarterback next year amazing and make this team amazing, I just don't see it. I
And
don't
then what
think
happens with Josh Rosen?
they're not even going to stick with Josh Rosen. Maybe. I mean, are they going to pick
Here's
Kyler Murray? Or are they just trying to
defensive
get a trade
training.
down? I mean, I just don't understand this. And I don't think that they should have fired their head coach from last year. I
They
keep
gave him
forgetting
one
names.
year. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, like you just don't hire somebody and then fire him after 1 year. Like,
Well,
and
yeah,
you give him that roster and you expect him to make the playoffs.
yeah.
Like
That's
that was the worst roster in the league going into the
best player
year.
is 40-year-old wide receiver.
I know it absolutely ridiculous what this organization is doing. I just don't understand. Um, but they made a lot of pickups, but no one really that amazing here. A lot of older
Best
guys.
players a 40-year-old defensive lineman they got.
Yeah, they made a lot of pickups of older guys. They got Jordan Hicks from Philadelphia, Robert Alford, cornerback from Atlanta, Terrell Suggs, 36-year-old from Baltimore Ravens, Charles Clay, he's over 30, from Buffalo, Brett Hundley to be the backup quarterback. He's a mobile guy like Kyler Murray. Um, Brooks Reed, defensive end from Atlanta. They picked up Kevin White, wide receiver from Chicago. Max Garcia from the Denver Broncos, guard, and J.R. Sweezy, a guard from the Seattle Seahawks. But they also lost Marcus Golden to the New York Giants, Deion Buchanan, inside linebacker, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Oday Abushi, guard, to the Detroit Lions, J.J. Nelson, wide receiver, to Oakland, Mike Iupati, guard, to Seattle, Antoine Bethea, free safety, to New York Giants, and finally Earl Watford, guard, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, they got Marcus Gilbert from Pittsburgh, and they lost a six-round compensatory pick for that, and that's it for them. What do you think of Arizona? I mean, they're making huge roster
I
turnover.
don't get like they had to rebuild and I guess they're trying to make a push to try and get a playoff position for
I mean, they're signing all these older players.
Larry Fitzgerald. That's the only reason I could see them signing all these old veteran guys, trying to make a push to get Larry Fitzgerald back in the playoffs.
But who are you going to push with as quarterback?
I couldn't tell
Josh
you. Yes,
Rosen
Kyler
or
Murray.
Kyler Murray? I mean, I just don't understand at all I think Arizona is going to be a dumpster fire for the next 5 years at this point
Yeah.
because none of these moves make any sense.
And
I
Cliff
mean,
Kingsbury is First, he's coaching Texas Tech, and you give him a job. Come
Yeah.
on.
I mean, it would be one thing if he was winning, big time, but he had like 5 years there and went to like a couple bowls and never went past 7-5. I mean, I don't like this Kevin White pickup from Chicago. I mean, it's not
He was
bad.
another
I think
first round pick to
we don't
begin.
know we don't know what he's going to be paid. They haven't released that yet. I mean, but they can't be paying him much. I mean, I guess it won't be that bad if they just want to try him out and see what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
But Brooks Reed is okay. Charles Clay is old. Terrell Suggs is really old. I mean, these aren't guys that you would pick up to rebuild. These are guys who I would think would be, for a playoff push, but they're not really close, in my opinion, to a playoff push.
Not at
So
all.
I think they're just blowing money at this
Too
point.
much of a question mark at the quarterback position, I think.
Absolutely. I just don't understand some of these picks. And, they lost some good guys. Deion Buchanan, he's been there a while. That's a big loss. J.J. Nelson is an underrated loss to Oakland, who's having a really good offseason so far with Mike Mayock as their GM. But anything else you got to say about this Arizona Cardinals team
They're a
other than,
joke.
yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to compete at all next year, and Cliff Kingsbury will be out within 3. That's my honest opinion. Not trying to offend any Cardinals fans out there, but that's just what I see this as. Okay, moving on to the AFC. We finally got through all the NFC teams. We're heading out to the AFC, and we're going to start with the AFC East. The New England Patriots picked up Brandon Bolden, the running back from Miami, Matt LaCosse, tight end from Denver, Bruce Ellington, wide receiver from Detroit, Terrence Brooks, free safety from the Jets, Maurice Harris, wide receiver from the Redskins, and Mike Pennell, defensive end from New York Jets. They lost Trey Flowers to Detroit, Trent Brown, left tackle, to Oakland, Cordell Patterson to Chicago, Dwayne Allen, the tight end, to Miami, and Eric Rowe, the cornerback, to the Miami Dolphins as well. But they re-signed Jason McCourty, cornerback, John Simon, defensive end, and Philip Dorsett, wide receiver. They also traded for Michael Bennett from Philadelphia for a 5th-round 2019 draft pick. What do you think of this Patriots offseason so far?
I mean, they'll start off as, they're going to be nothing again this year, but they'll go to the Super Bowl, so it doesn't
Yeah.
even matter what I think.
Honestly, they're having a really Patriots offseason.
Like,
They're getting rid of guys that they think that they can't pay, and they're getting a bunch of new guys who just fit the system. It's all about the system in New England.
It's all about Bill Belichick's scheme.
I love the Bruce Ellington pickup for them. I think he's going to do really well there in their system. Terrence Brooks, I think, will be a decent free safety. I don't know if he'll be the starter, though. We'll see what Brandon Bolden can do for them. I think he's more of a pass-catching type back, if I remember correctly. None of these losses are really big, but I love the Philip Dorsett re-signing. He's a speedster. I think he can prove himself this year. And I like the Jason McCourty signing a lot, bringing him back. He had an insane Super Bowl. He had these really good plays, making sure the Patriots would win. So overall, and I think the Michael Bennett trade was really beneficial for them. He's not as good as he used to be, as I stated earlier, but he will be a good player for them. Any final thoughts on New England?
No, they're probably just going to go to Super Bowl again.
Probably. They'll win the division as always. It's been like, 12 straight years?
That division too.
Yeah. Miami, having an interesting offseason. They are moving on from Ryan Tannehill. And I don't know what quarterbacks they even have on the roster now. It might be Blake Bortles. It's going to maybe be. Blake is also actually, I saw this before we started, going to head out to Los Angeles to visit with the Rams. But they trade Ryan Tannehill to Tennessee, receive a 4th-round pick, but they also ship out a 6th-round pick, both of those for the 2019 draft. They also lost Juwan James, big loss at right tackle. Cameron Wake, who's been there forever, defensive end. He's going to Tennessee. Danny Amendola, 1-year deal in Miami. He's going to Detroit. Frank Gore heading to Buffalo. Ted Larson, guard to Chicago. Brandon Bolden, the running back to New England, as we just said. And the only 2 pickups they made were both from New England, Dwayne Allen and Eric Rowe. Is Miami in rebuild mode? Because that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, they have to rebuild. They have to trade in their Ryan Tannehill to Tennessee.
I think that's their goal.
I think they just have to rebuild.
I think it was finally time to move on from Tannehill. I mean, he was decent, but never great.
And he's always been hurt.
And he's always hurt. So I think it was finally time to move on and
He hasn't played in, 2 years?
Didn't he play last year?
I think he got hurt at some point.
Maybe. I know Jay Cutler played from the previous year, which, but obviously they're not making any fits to keep some of their veteran guys here, so they're not making a push anymore, it looks like. and I think they're in total rebuild mode now, which is smart because Miami really wasn't competing very well at all for the past few years. So I think a rebuild is more than necessary at this point
Yeah,
for them.
but yet again, no one's ever gonna compete until Tom Brady's gone in that division.
That's true. And I think, maybe with Bill Belichick gone too, I think he'll probably retire when Tom Brady does at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but, I do like the fact that they did pick up a draft pick for Ryan Tannehill. You know, I'm actually surprised that they were able to get a trade for him. You know, I didn't
I,
really think there's
I
gonna be a
don't
lot of
I
suitors.
don't get why Tennessee would trade for him at this point.
Doesn't really fit the Marcus Mariota scheme, does he?
No.
But Marcus Mariota was hurt a bit last
And
year.
if they let Marcus, like if they might let Marcus Mariota walk after his rookie deal's done, that they're gonna make
Start
a
Tannehill?
slide in. I don't know.
Eh,
What? Well, I don't know what their game plan is with Ryan Tannehill.
I don't think anybody really knows what the game plan is with Ryan Tannehill at this point. But I think it is smart for Miami to just head into rebuild mode at this point. Just clear as much cap space for the next few years and just build from the ground up. That's all you can do.
Straight
Um,
build.
Moving on to the next team in this division, the Buffalo Bills. Having a really cool offseason. This is, I mean, they made the playoffs for the first time in like 20 years a couple years ago. Didn't do well last year. I think they're trying to make another playoff push here. They pick up Mitch Morse, center from Kansas City, Cole Beasley, a pretty darn good slot guy from Dallas, John Brown, wide receiver, the speedster from Baltimore, Tyler Croft, a good tight end from Cincinnati, Ty Nsekhe, left tackle from Washington, Spencer Long, another center from the New York Jets, John Feliciano, guard from the Oakland Raiders. Frank Gore is going to be a huge locker room presence up there. They got him from Miami. Kevin Johnson, cornerback from Houston, and Andre Roberts, wide receiver from the New York Giants. They only lost Charles Clay and John Miller, and they're not really breaking the bank on anybody. The only player they're paying over $10 million from this free agency frenzy is Mitch Morse. They're paying him on a 4-year, $44.5 million deal, 11.125 per year, basically. Um, what do you think of this? Are the Bills making a playoff push again?
I think after saw what Josh Allen could do this year, I thought Josh
Yeah.
Allen surprised a lot of people
Eh.
with his play in Buffalo this year, and they think they can make a playoff push.
Well, he definitely surprised me. I didn't think he'd be very good at all, but he had some really good plays and some good moments last year. I think the John Brown signing, giving a guy who can throw basically the entire football field a very fast wide receiver. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
you
huge.
saw what he could do with Joe Flacco last year, who has a cannon of an arm. Josh Allen might have a better arm than Joe Flacco at this point. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what John Brown can do there. And Cole Beasley's going to be a good pickup for him too, right?
Yeah.
And they're rebuilding this offensive line for him. They're going very offensive heavy here. So we'll see what they can do in the next few years. But I think this is a good offseason so far from the Buffalo Bills. Is there any other need from them you see that they should, address either in free agency or be prepared to get in the draft?
I think they're gonna go defense in the draft.
I think you're right. I think that they're going to build that defense too in the draft because the way they're building the offense right now is pretty much all free agency. So they'll probably go mostly defense in the draft. Maybe they'll pick a corner or defensive lineman or some sort of pass rusher. But moving on to the last team in this division, the New York Jets made a lot of big signings. I mean, the first
Yeah.
day of free agency, they were very active. They almost got Anthony Barr. We talked about this earlier. Almost Anthony Barr, not quite. But they do pick up C.J. Mosley from Baltimore, very good inside linebacker. They
Great.
got Le'Veon Bell, running back from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jamison Crowder, wide receiver from the Washington Redskins. Josh Bellamy, wide receiver slash special teamer from Chicago. They pick up Brian Poole, cornerback from Atlanta, and Chandler Catanzaro, kicker from Carolina. But they did lose James Carpenter, the guard, to Atlanta. Buster Screen to Chicago. Spencer Long to Buffalo. Andre Roberts to Buffalo as well. Clive Walford, tight end to Miami. Jason Myers, the kicker. They replaced him with Catanzaro. Uh, Terrence Brooks is going to the Patriots, and so is Mike Pennell. But they re-signed Henry Anderson, defensive end, Neville Hewitt, inside linebacker, Steve McClendon, defensive tackle, um, and they traded for guard Kelechi Osemele for a fifth-round pick. They gave that to the Oakland Raiders to get him. Um, what's your favorite Jets signing here? They made a few big ones, and Jamison Crowder, Le'Veon Bell, and
I
C.J.
think
Mosley.
I think it's Jamison Crowder.
Okay, you think that's more of a value pick than the other two?
Yeah, definitely because I think with Sam Darnold being young. He really didn't have that many like receivers on the outside of like Robbie Anderson last year.
Hmm.
And Jameson Crowder's like he's a very good wide receiver coming for Washington. And I think he could be a really good deep threat for Sam Darnold.
Oh, absolutely. He can be a very good wide receiver for Sam Darnold. I think the CJ Mosley pickup was interesting, but they paid him $17 million per year, which is absolutely crazy. I wanted him to be back in Baltimore, but there was no way we could shell out more than half the cap space for him. And they get Le'Veon Bell, one of the most talked about free agents in a while. Did you see basically what happened the night Le'Veon Bell was going to announce where he was going?
He
The
was
rumor was that it was
or
going to be in his
something.
rap album.
Yeah, I don't know.
And basically, the rumor was that some Ravens players were tweeting out that he was going to say he was going to the Ravens in his rap album. So me being me, I stayed up till 12:30 to listen to this rap album that dropped. Not a single word about any team in it. And then all of a sudden, Adam Schefter tweets out he's going to the Jets. I'm like, why do they do this to me? I didn't even want Le'Veon Bell. Why am I even doing this? So, I mean, that was a waste of time. And he's a terrible rapper, I have to say. I couldn't understand a word he said. Um, I think the Jets are just spending money because they have money at this point.
But I think Le'Veon Bell's obviously going to help him.
Oh yeah, he'll help. And what's interesting about Le'Veon is he didn't get the money I think he thought he was going to get. He
he
wanted a
got
lot.
70 million from the Steelers
Yeah,
2 years ago, and then
yeah.
he goes and signs 54. That's
He wanted that guaranteed money. I think he's getting more guaranteed money, but
still.
it's still not going to amount to as much as he could have gotten with Pittsburgh. Um, but I think they're having a decent offseason. They've just got money to blow, so why not blow it? And they're going to give Sam Darnold weapons like Jamison Crowder, and it'll be interesting to see if they go out and draft maybe a big receiver too to help build around Sam
But they
Darnold, who
still
really
haven't
looks good at the
addressed
end of
the
the season.
offensive line.
What's that about the offensive line?
They haven't addressed it. They
That
need
is true. They have not. And their offensive line hasn't been that good. And they did lose James Carpenter. They lost Spencer
maybe
Long.
do it in the draft. Who knows?
That's true. I mean, there's some good, Garrett Bradbury in the draft this year. Eric McCoy looks good, center slash guard. So they have
Not
some
they're
options
going to
out there.
waste the third overall pick for an offensive
Well,
line.
they'd have to trade down, right?
I think they'd trade down if they're going to draft an offensive lineman.
Maybe Gruden trades up with them to get somebody. Who knows?
They draft like Jawan Taylor or something.
Yeah, that would be a good pickup for them. Tackle, right, out of Florida,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Any other? What do you think about the? I mean, they did address it with Clutchy Assembly though, but he is getting older, right?
He's old.
What do you think about Clutchy Assembly though? Like for a fifth round pick, you can't really go wrong there. I think.
Take it. He's a big body.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
you can use him for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good value for them, but they do have to address that offensive line. You are right, absolutely. Um, Moving on to the next division, the AFC North, my Baltimore Ravens, they picked up Earl Thomas, the safety from Seattle, and Mark Ingram from New Orleans, and Justin Bethel from the Atlanta Falcons, quarterback slash special teamer. But they lost C.J. Mosley, inside linebacker, Zadarius Smith, the outside linebacker, John Brown, wide receiver, Terrell Suggs went to AZ, and Eric Weddle went to LA. We have re-signed nobody so far, but we made a trade with Denver to give Joe Flacco to them for a fourth round pick. What do you think of Baltimore's offseason so far?
I think Earl Thomas signing was pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like they may have paid him a little bit more than they
But
should
I
have.
think they needed to because of all the people that wanted him. Because of
Yeah, you basically, I mean, with the loss of Eric Weddle, if you wanted to keep that defense alive, you had to go out and get somebody. And they did with Earl Thomas. They're giving him $55 million over 4 years, $13.75 million per year. But they still have just under $20 million in cap space with these few signings. Picking up Mark Ingram, I thought was excellent. Only for $5 million a year, Mark Ingram.
I think that's great actually.
Yeah. I had my Ravens podcast a little while ago, a few days ago, and I said that Mark Ingram, as much as I like the Earl Thomas signing, the Mark Ingram signing is just so sweet with that price. So I think
a lot of defensive.
yeah, and I think Justin Bethel will be a good pickup for special teams. He's a three-time special teams Pro Bowler, and they signed him for peanuts basically. The Joe Flacco trade, obviously bittersweet for the Ravens. Joe Flacco led the team for 10 years, well, 10 and a half years. He was on the team for 11, and they got a fourth round pick out of him. A lot of people didn't think that Joe Flacco would command a trade from any team, but not only were the Denver Broncos interested in Flacco, but the Washington Redskins also were too. What do you think of the Joe Flacco trade? Do you think they got a good deal with that fourth round pick?
I don't know what else. I Yeah, I mean, what else can you get for a 35-year-old quarterback now?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's a little younger than that. I think he's like 33, but still.
I don't know.
John Elway says he's
But
entering his prime.
he's on
I
the other.
mean,
He's on the other side. He's going down in production.
I think he'll be good with Denver for a few years, but it'll only be
Get
two or
thin
three
air.
years.
He'll be able to throw it a lot further.
Yeah, yeah. He's had some good plays up there, to say the least. But overall, I like this Baltimore Ravens offseason so far. They're sticking to their guns. They're not overpaying people, and they're getting good deals done with
Oh,
Mark Ingram and
Joe
Earl
Flacco,
Thomas.
34.
Joe Flacco's 34. Okay. Yeah. But I think Earl Thomas is a big pickup, though. That's a really nice pickup.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, they picked up Steven Nelson, cornerback, and Tante Moncrief, the wide receiver, but they lost Le'Veon. They lose Jesse James, the tight end, and L.J. Fort to the Philadelphia Eagles. They re-signed Eli Rogers, wide receiver, Daniel McCullers, defensive tackle, and Anthony Chickilio, an outside linebacker, and they trade Antonio Brown to the Oakland for a third and a fifth, and Marcus Gilbert to the Arizona Cardinals, and they receive a sixth-round compensatory pick for that. What do you think of the Antonio Brown trade?
I don't see, like, obviously he demanded a trade, but like
Yeah.
a third and fifth round pick gets that done. Come on, Pittsburgh,
I
figure it
mean,
out.
do you think Antonio Brown's antics kind of like drew people away from wanting to get
I
him?
think what since he was like saying, "Oh, I want out, I want out, I want out," his like trade value and what they can get back went down.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, definitely, because they had to get rid of him, right?
Yeah.
So you have a little bit more leverage if you're Mike Mayock and John Gruden with the Oakland Raiders. Um, what do you think the impact of his loss is going to be on this offense, though?
Oh, I think their offense is going to be awful next year.
Well, they still have Juju, and they've
I
got James
understand
Conner.
that. I think the team's just going to be in shambles next year.
I feel like that Mike Tomlin has really been holding together a bunch of like renegades.
Someone sort of lost that locker room too towards the end of the season.
Yeah, he lost. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell, in my opinion, are all locker room problems, right?
They called them the
And
Killer Bees. They just killed
yeah,
this franchise.
the Killer Bees are one of the best trios we've ever seen, and they didn't win a Super Bowl.
Nope.
Like, how does this happen? I mean, the Steelers underperformed for years now, and this
Like, you
trade
saw what
obviously is
Antonio
big.
Brown said about like Big Ben being some sort of like trying to be the owner of the team. I don't know
Yeah, I
what
mean,
he was saying.
everybody's just that team is basically a dumpster fire. Do you remember last year we did the podcast and I said the Steelers are on the decline?
Yeah.
I
Now
got
they're in
comments
the
from
decline.
people saying that I was crazy for saying that. They're definitely on the decline. I don't think they're going to come in second. They're not going to come in first place in the division. They'll be in third or fourth next year. Um, Big losses in Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. You can't, replace them. And Ben Roethlisberger is going to be on the way out in the next few years. So they better hope Mason Rudolph pans out. Now, here's a team for you. Cleveland Browns.
Oh
They pick
man.
up Sheldon Richardson, defensive tackle, Ardarius Taylor, inside linebacker, Kareem Hunt, running back who got suspended for 8 games, Demetrius Harris, tight end, Kendall Lamb, right tackle, and Eric Kush. They also picked up Olivia Vernon from the Giants and Odell Beckham Jr. for those trades we went over earlier. They re-signed Carl Davis, Ray Armstrong, and Philip Gaines. They only lost Tyrod Taylor, who wasn't coming back anyway. Brian Body Calhoun, Raheem Moore, and Brashad Perryman. We said that, the winners of the offseason so far were the San Francisco 49ers. Are the Cleveland Browns the new
They
winners of
could
the
make
offseason? What'd you say?
that could be an argument between the San Francisco 49ers and the Browns, who won the offseason.
What do you think Odell Beckham's role on this Cleveland Browns team is going to be?
The number one wide receiver.
Well, obviously, but like, how is he going to help improve Baker Mayfield's production? Do you think Baker Mayfield's going to, go crazy next year?
Oh, I think he'd be unbelievable. Like
Yeah, I mean,
he's gonna drop back, see number 13. If he's not open, you see Juice. That's ridiculous.
or David Njoku, right?
Njoku or Kareem Hunt when he comes
Nick
back.
Chubb, like this is a monster offense. It's gonna be so fun to watch next year. This is the only team in the AFC North that I actually can like stomach is the Cleveland Browns. As much as I like the Ravens, I would like to see these guys make a wild card, right? just because they haven't been to the playoffs forever.
Yeah.
John Dorsey is been doing wonders for this team, right?
Oh,
He
unbelievable.
he basically built two playoff teams with Kansas City and Cleveland. So hats off to John Dorsey. He's doing a fantastic job over in Cleveland. Um, Moving on now to Cincinnati. They've had an interesting offseason. Not a whole lot going on, though. They pick up B.W. Webb, cornerback of the New York Giants, and John Miller, guard from Buffalo. But they lose Tyler Croft and Cedric Ogbuehi, tackle from Jacksonville, to Jacksonville, I should say. They re-signed C.J. Azuma, tight end, Bobby Hart, right tackle, and Preston Brown, inside linebacker. A lot of people are angry with the Bobby Hart re-signing for $16 million. Do you know anything about Bobby Hart at right tackle that you want
No,
to comment on?
no, I don't really know too much about
Yeah.
Bobby
I'm
Hart.
not really that familiar with Bobby Hart, but a lot of people were saying they overpaid him. Um, the Cincinnati Bengals here are not making a lot of moves, which I thought they would,
The
being in
Bengals
rebuild
are
mode.
kind of like trying to rebuild too.
Here's a question for you. I saw somewhere that Andy Dalton's contract is no longer has no guaranteed money on it. Do you cut Andy Dalton and move on to a new quarterback soon?
Would
You would.
yeah.
I think I would too. He's underperformed for the past few years. Um, I also heard rumblings that they might try to trade AJ Green. I mean, they're
I
just
heard that
rumors.
too. That was like
You heard that?
yeah, I heard that.
So, I mean, if they trade AJ Green, they're definitely in rebuild mode and they're going all in on that. I would love them to trade AJ Green just because he bothers us every single time he plays us.
Uh-huh.
Just send him to the NFC where you have to face him once every 4 years. That'd be fantastic. Um, But yeah, the Bengals are going to go into rebuild mode soon, at least, because last year was a complete disaster. And they picked up Zach Taylor, the quarterbacks coach from Los Angeles. I don't know how that's going to work out for them.
Because
I
they
know
think he's the next Sean McVay.
I know, but he's not going to be the next Sean McVay. I hate to break it to Cincinnati. It's just not going to, happen. Moving on to the next division, AFC South. Sean Gibson, they picked up free safety from Jacksonville. Bradley Roby, cornerback from Denver. And Brian Body Calhoun, safety from the Cleveland Browns. But they lost Tyrann Mathieu. They lost Kareem Jackson, two safeties right there. They've lost Kevin Johnson, cornerback. They lose Kendall Lamb, right tackle, and Christian Covington, the defensive tackle. But they keep Jadeveon Clowney with the franchise tag for $15.4 million next year. Is this Tyrann Mathieu loss going to be huge for them, or do you think they're going to be able to be okay
I
with
think it's kind of a
Deshaun
big deal,
Gibson?
but I think they can fix that in like the draft. There's a couple of good defensive backs this year.
Well, they picked up Deshaun Gibson from Jacksonville, but do
Mm-hmm.
you think he's going to be able to fill in that role, or do you think
It's
they should
hard
go
to
with somebody
fill
like
in.
Nasser Adderley from
I think
Delaware?
it'll help.
What's that?
I think that'll help, but
Yeah,
Tyrann Mathieu is one of the best safeties in the league. It's kind of hard to fill his shoes.
there's no question about that. And he had a great year last year for them. I think he was injured for like a couple of games, but he had a pretty good year. Jadeveon Clowney getting franchise tag, was that the
I've
right
been
move for
hearing
them?
that Clowney might get traded.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'd be interesting to see if that happened. Um, but if they keep Clowney on the franchise tag, is that the right move for them, or should they have
I
just
mean,
let him?
I think they I think they would have to because
Yeah, I think you're right.
J.J. Watt is getting kind of old too, and he gets injured a lot. They need someone coming off the edge.
In those first couple of years, it looked like Jadeveon Clowney was going to be a complete draft bust. But
Yeah.
then he really picked up his play. So hats off to him for that. Hopefully he doesn't hold out with them because every time a player holds out, it doesn't end very well.
Mm-hmm.
Except if you're Aaron Donald, he got that deal right from holding out.
Yeah.
Um,
Eight defensive player of the year 2 years in a row. He should.
yeah, yeah. But Jadeveon Clowney, 15.4 million. I think it's fair for him.
Oh yeah.
But if you look at these other deals, Tyrann Mathieu got 14 million per year, 42 million overall in 3 years from Kansas City. But that'll help them with their secondary over there, which was really bad last year. Now moving on to the next team in this division, the Indianapolis Colts had the most cap space of any team, and they did absolutely nothing with it. They did absolutely nothing. They made two signings. They re-signed Pierre Desir, their cornerback, for 3 years, $25 million, and they picked up Devin Funchess for 1 year for $10 million. What do you think's going on in Indianapolis? They're not making any moves.
I mean, they made the playoffs with their current roster, not spending all their cap space. So why not give another run?
So you think they're going to basically save their cap space,
Yep.
try to extend their players in the future, and
Yep.
draft the correct guys, I think that'd be a good move for them going forward.
I think
And they're back at the top with Andrew Luck. And I think Frank Reich did a really good job as a coach last year
they really
for them.
built that offensive lineup the past
With
couple of
Quentin
years.
Nelson was a beast last year for them,
Yeah,
and they made real big improvements, great strides. The offensive line was one of the worst, became one of the best in the league in about a year. So, I mean, they're doing phenomenal over in Indianapolis. Not a whole lot of moves in free agency, but it is understandable because they did make the playoffs. Moving on to Tennessee, this team almost made the playoffs. They came close. So they're going to pick up Cameron Wake, Adam Humphries, wide receiver, and Roger Saffold, the guard, trying to make this playoff push. And they're only going to lose Luke Stocker so far, tight end too, and then he's going to Atlanta. They re-signed Kenny Vaccaro, their strong safety. I think that was a good move for them. And Kevin Pamphil, the guard, and of course they picked up Ryan Tannehill in a trade. What do you think about Do you think that they can make a playoff push next year, and are they really being sufficient and with their signings for that attempt?
I think they can. They really they got another weapon for Marcus Mariota. Him and Corey Davis, I think, could really help Marcus Mariota get balls down the field, and the
Yeah,
guard to protect Marcus Mariota, I think he could help.
yeah.
And
Roger
obviously
Saffold was
the
a good pick.
Cameron Wake Sonic's pretty is decent.
Yeah, the Cameron Wake signing I think is pretty good for an older guy coming in here should be able to help them out. I think Roger Saffold will provide you know a, a good amount of protection for Marcus Mariota who gets hit quite a lot. I really like the Kenny Vaccaro signing though. Bringing him back to another deal after that 1 year prove it deal. He helps that defense a lot. And Ryan Tannehill bringing him in. I mean, I guess it's decent. I don't really know yet.
You
It's kind of
understand
too early to
plans
tell.
with that?
Yeah, he'll be the backup, but that's all. Um, you know, for trading basically a fourth and a sixth, it's not that bad. It could be worse. Um, Moving on to the final team in this division, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I predicted to go to the Super Bowl, and they failed me pretty badly. But they make one of the biggest free agent signings of the year. They pick up Nick Foles, quarterback from Philadelphia. They also grab Chris Conley, wide receiver, Cedric Ogbui, offensive tackle from Cincinnati, and Jeff Swaim, tight end from Dallas. But they lose Malik Jackson, Tashawn Gibson, Carlos Hyde, and Dante Moncrief, all players who had an impact last year. But they also re-signed A.J. Cann. The Nick Foles signing. Did they pick the right quarterback for the future?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I mean,
Why
they
is that?
paid him $88 million, and this guy has only played well under one team, and that's the Eagles.
That is
System
true.
quarterback, I believe.
That is true. But do you think they can get anything out of him over the next few years? Can they make a Super Bowl run with Nick Foles, or are they just basically throwing money into a ditch with Nick Foles?
I think they're gonna throw money in the ditch, to be honest.
Wow. Okay. I think it's a good signing. But obviously, you know, it is risky. He is 30 years old. And he hasn't played. You're right. He hasn't played well for other teams he was on. He was traded to the Rams. Ended up going to Kansas City, I think, with Doug Peterson for a little bit. I think people are divided on this, right? And I think 88 million is pretty high, right? Because who else was pursuing Nick
Exactly.
Foles? Was anybody?
I don't think anyone.
Yeah. So I mean, he was basically the last domino to fall at quarterback other than Teddy Bridgewater, and there was really no bidding war for him. I don't know why they paid him 88 million. They probably could have gotten away with much less, but I mean, I like Nick Foles though. I think that he will give them a few good years, maybe 3, 4, 5. But that'll probably be it afterwards for him. I think that Malik Jackson loss though is pretty big for them.
Their defense is kind of was in shambles last year, even though they have a lot of big names. But I think that
Yeah.
starts with Jalen Ramsey going on rants all the time.
I think you're right. I think that locker room is not really the best in the world. The culture down there not too good. Jalen Ramsey,
He might
locker room
be free
problem
too when
definitely.
his deal's done. Who knows?
If he hits the free agent market, he's gonna be basically Le'Veon Bell 2.0, I think.
Yeah.
Right? People will speculate, but he won't get as much money maybe as he thought in the beginning because of the problems he might cause in the locker room.
Mm,
But at least he doesn't rap in Miami for an entire year instead of playing
true.
football. Um, so do you think that the Jacksonville Jaguars would be any improved next year, or would they be back in the bottom feeder of this division?
I think it depends how one the defense improves or plays better, but I don't think it will because of Malik Jackson's loss.
Hmm.
And two, how Nick Foles could play.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Moving on to our final division here, the AFC West. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs with Tyrann Mathieu. They signed him. Big deal there. They grabbed Carlos Hyde. I think that's a good pickup. Underrated running back. Damian Wilson, outside linebacker, and Alex Okafor from the New Orleans Saints at defensive end. But they lose a lot of guys. They lost Mitch Moore, the center, Steven Nelson, the cornerback, Kareem Hunt, who they cut for obvious reasons, Demetrius Harris, tight end, Chris Conley is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they cut Eric Berry. Big name going out of
They
there.
cut Justin Houston.
Yes, Justin Houston also cut. I heard rumblings of him maybe going to Baltimore, actually. And they traded D Ford to the San Francisco 49ers. This is a team that competed for a Super Bowl next year, and it looks like they're clearing house, especially on defense. Is there a strategy to this, or are they just...
I don't really understand why they would do this, even though they're gonna I think they would compete with a Super Bowl with that defense. But I guess
Well, they need to improve the secondary, but the front
trying to
was okay.
clear salary cap so they could pay Patrick Mahomes some lucrative deal when his deal runs out.
Yeah, in the next 4 years from now, when Pat Mahomes is about to be a free agent, he's going to get paid a huge amount of money as long as he continues this trend. Um, Honestly, I think that they're going to be a little worse next year. They'll probably go from, what were they, 12-4? They'll probably go down to like 10-6. But they'll still make the playoffs with that offense. But they have to improve this defense. They have to do something about it. Other than Tyrann Mathieu, I mean, he helps. But getting rid of D Ford,
Yeah, I don't
I
get
mean,
it.
that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, you get a second round pick, but come
And
on.
Justin
And
Houston.
Justin Houston. I mean, you're kind of tearing this defensive front seven apart. The Kansas City Chiefs used to have a really good defense. Now they're just like no more. And I still don't understand the Marcus Peters trade from last year, but that's okay. Moving on to the Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers. Thomas Davis, they picked up outside linebacker Tyrod Taylor. Um, they also they lose Tyrell Williams to the Oakland Raiders and Jason Verrett to the 49ers, the free safety there. But they re-signed Adrian Phillips and Brandon Mebane. Uneventful offseason so far for the Chargers. Are they making the right decision, basically staying put on the roster they have?
I think they're trying to stay put on the roster and get to the playoffs again.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I
They had a pretty good season
think,
last year.
I think they could challenge the Chiefs for that division though, since the Chiefs are tearing down that defense for
I think
some.
the Chargers are going to win that division.
Mm.
And it was funny because last year we talked about the Chargers are always supposed to be the next big team, and they never are. They finally did it. They finally did it this year.
They lost.
Yeah, they couldn't beat the Patriots, but I think they're going to sit on this roster and they're going to try to keep this window open for Philip Rivers.
Rivers can do it.
Philip Rivers really deserves a Super Bowl in all honesty.
Oh, come on, Chris, don't make me start.
Look, I like Philip Rivers a lot. He's been around for a while, and I think if he makes a Super Bowl and he wins it, if he beats the Patriots in the AFC Championship, I'll be happy. As long as it's not us he's beating. But if it can't be us, I'd like to see Philip Rivers maybe do it. Or
Winning.
or the Denver Broncos this year for obvious reasons. I want to see my man Joe Flacco win another Super Bowl, even if it's not with us. They pick up Joe Flacco, obviously. They pick up Juwan James, the right tackle, to help him out. They get Kareem Jackson, the safety. Bryce Callahan follows Vic Fangio from Chicago to the Denver Broncos. But they lose some other offensive line pieces. They lose Matt Paradis, the center. They lost Billy Turner, the guard. They on the defensive side, they lose Bradley Roby, the cornerback. Shaquille Barrett, outside linebacker, he's going to Tampa Bay. They lose Matt Lacoste, the tight end. He's going to New York. I'm not sorry, not New York, New England. And Max Garcia, another guard, he's heading to Arizona. The only re-signing they made is Jeff Howerman, tight end. And of course, they trade for Joe Flacco and they send Case Keenum to Washington. Will Denver compete next year for the AFC West?
I do not think so.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think they'll be a wild card team, or are they just out of the playoffs completely?
I don't think they're making the playoffs. I don't think they did enough to think they can make the playoffs. They traded Case Keenum and then just added Joe Flacco, which kind of like offsets each other, I would say.
Well, I think Joe Flacco, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I think Joe Flacco is a much better quarterback than Case Keenum.
Yeah, but I don't
And
know.
he's won the big games, too.
They
Something
don't
Case
they don't
Keenum
have
doesn't.
Demarius Thomas anymore.
That's true. But they have Emmanuel Sanders.
He's old.
That's true. Maybe if they address the wide receiver position in the draft, if they add a big,
Phil Lindsay can't carry the load like that too much.
That is true. I mean, I think if they add a DK Metcalf,
Mm.
okay,
I think that would.
or you know, I mean DK Metcalf is a risky prospect, but if they add him and he pans out, I think this offense is gonna be really good next year. I think maybe you don't have a lot of faith in Philip Lindsay, but I think he'll carry the rock well with Royce Freeman behind him.
Yeah.
Um, I think Emmanuel Sanders should continue to be a good player for them. I think overall this team's going to be better than last year. Maybe they don't compete for the division. Maybe they're not a winning team. Maybe they're 8-8, but they're going to be better, I think. I think obviously Flacco will have a lot to do with that. Um, moving on to our last team, basically, right? Yeah, the Oakland Raiders. Very eventful offseason to say the least. They pick up Trent Brown from New England, the left tackle, Tyrell Williams, wide receiver from LA Chargers, LaMarcus Joyner from the other LA team, the free safety. They grabbed Josh Murrow from the New York Giants, J.J. Nelson, wide receiver from the Arizona Cardinals. The only loss they have is John Feliciano to the Buffalo Bills. He's a guard. They re-signed Chaz Green. They trade Clutchy Osemele to the Jets, and they grab Antonio Brown. Are these one of the big winners of the offseason, the Oakland Raiders?
I would say so,
Yeah.
but I don't know how much they're gonna do in that division because of the Chiefs and
It's a strong division. It's
the
a very strong division.
Chargers.
I think they'll improve. Maybe they'll go 8-8, maybe 9-7. Um, you know, I don't know how much Antonio Brown's going to help them long term because he is getting older. But for the first couple of years, I think he'll be a great addition, especially if they keep Derek Carr as quarterback and don't go into the temptation of Kyler Murray. Um, I think that a lot of these pickups are pretty good. I think Trent Brown's a good pickup for them at left tackle. LaMarcus Joyner is going to be a nice addition. Tyrell Williams is an underrated wide receiver for LA. And J.J. Nelson's going to be a good addition too. So they got three new wide receivers right off the bat there, and they are loaded up on draft capital from
Yep.
the Amari Cooper trade and the Khalil Mack trade from last year. So they're going to be, I think, okay going forward. Um, do they use that draft capital though to go get Kyler Murray? What do you think?
I don't think they should because of Derek Carr. Like, why would you waste your all those draft picks just to go get Kyle Murray, who's an unsure thing, who's
Yeah.
not, you don't know what you're gonna get from him.
And as we transition here into our draft news, Kyler Murray's been in NFL news for a little bit for the past few weeks. His combine, he didn't do anything except get measured, and people were saying he cheated on his height exam somehow.
I don't know how you could cheat on that, but
Um, I don't know. He clocks in at 5'10", but then he goes to his pro day, and they want to make him do the height exam again, and he says no. So this might sound crazy, but is his height a conspiracy? Is he shorter than 5'10", do you think? Is he actually, or is
I,
this just all like a
I don't
nothing burger by
really
people?
know.
What would you say?
I don't know, but I don't know how you could cheat that with all those draft people there, all the
Yeah,
scouts, all the GMs. I don't know how you could do that.
I don't think he cheated his
And
height.
aren't they in their underwear basically doing this?
Uh, Pretty much they have no shoes on, and they're in the draft clothes.
Yeah.
So, um, I don't think he cheated on his height at all. I think he's actually 5'10". So, decent height, but he is still short for a quarterback. But he didn't run the 40-yard dashes pro day either, I don't think.
Was he
So,
injured?
I am concerned about him transitioning to the NFL. I really am. I don't know if he's actually going to pan out.
He really only played 1 year in college, to be
Yeah,
honest.
and the way he plays, how undersized he actually is, I don't know if he's going to pan out. I don't really know. Is he going to be like Johnny
Like
Manziel?
a parent, maybe.
Did you see the Charlie Casserly report on him?
No.
Okay, so Charlie Casserly, former GM of a lot of teams, most notably the Redskins, where he won a Super Bowl with them, said he talked to team scouts, and multiple scouts told him that Kyler Murray was um, very immature in his draft meetings with them, and didn't really understand the X's and O's of football, and wasn't prepared to be a first round pick or an NFL quarterback. A lot of people are just saying that they told um, Charlie Casserly this to kind of get the information out there that Kyler Murray wasn't ready for the NFL, so someone could get him earlier or later. Um, do you think there's any credence to Kyler Murray being, not ready for the NFL, or is this like
No,
just
I think that can make sense though. He's really only played college football like as a starter for 1 year because of Baker Mayfield. He's played baseball. He was drafted to play baseball.
If I was
And
him, I would have played baseball. There's no salary cap, and you don't get hurt as much.
you don't
But
get hurt as much. But you don't. You also in the NFL you start in the act and you start in the league. In the MLB you start in the minor leagues,
yeah,
which is not a fun
that's true.
start your professional career.
Um, so do you think Kyler Murray is worthy of being the number one pick though, or
Um,
should it be somebody else?
if I were the Cardinals, I'd take Nick Bosa, but
I would too, 100%.
the Cardinals are the Cardinals, and they're probably going to take Kyler Murray because Cliff Kingsbury thinks he's an unbelievable athlete.
Yeah. Well, he is a really good athlete though. I will give him that. This might be a hot take, but I currently think Kyler Murray is more of a second round pick than a first. So I'll probably
You
get yelled at
know,
for that.
if someone's going to bite the bullet on him in the first round,
Well, someone will, but I would, if I was a scout, I would grade him as a second round pick because he's just, to me, a first round pick has to be a surefire starter and a
yeah.
solid player. Kyler Murray is too risky. I think he's more of a second round
I
pick.
think Dwayne Haskins is the best quarterback in the draft.
I agree with you 100%, and that kind of leads into our next question here. Will the Giants draft their future quarterback, and will it be Dwayne Haskins? I think Dwayne Haskins is the best overall thrower in the draft, the best passer.
I think about the Giants. You're not going to compete next year, okay? It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. No way. You're not going to compete next year. I take a defensive lineman. If Rashawn Gary's there, I would love it. Take him.
So you would take Rashawn Gary over Dwayne Haskins?
Yes, and then if we do terrible next year, we get Tua or Jake Fromm.
It's not a bad strategy. There are people concerned though that Rashawn Gary, not being the number one pass rusher at Michigan could be a problem.
The best defensive lineman in the at that time in the draft, I would take.
You think he's the best defensive lineman at that? Well, obviously not Nick Bosa. He'll go like one or two. But after Nick Bosa, you think he's the best defensive lineman?
Sean Gary?
Yeah.
I don't know. Whoever the Giants think it is.
It could be Montez Sweat maybe. I just did a review of him. He's interesting, but he is a little raw. But he's huge. He's like 6'6".
The guy from Alabama. I forgot his name.
Quinnen Williams. I think Quinnen Williams would be a fantastic pick for the Giants if they don't want to go quarterback. My take is though I think the Giants will go quarterback. And I think it will be Dwayne Haskins. In all honesty, and I think you can't go wrong. I think you prepare for the future that way, whether or not you roll with him next year. You may just want to roll with Eli next year to get another high pick to kind of tank for a season.
Exactly.
But I think you can't go wrong. I think Dwayne Haskins is really the only first round caliber quarterback in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's by far the best. I think he's going to be a good starter for whoever picks him up. Moving on to the Steelers though, what are they going to do now after they lost Le'Veon and Antonio Brown with their 20th overall pick?
I really couldn't tell you, but I don't know. I think they're going to build up that defense more. They have to.
They absolutely have to.
Their defense
there's
is
no question.
not good. It's just whoever's the best offensive prospects at that time in the draft, I think they're going to take.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. They've already got what they think the quarterback of the future is with Mason Rudolph. They've got Juju, and they've got James Conner. So they've got their next three, they think, their next trio. So I think they'll go defense. That defense has to get, bolstered up. Someone's got to do something with that. Moving on to our final draft question. Our next show will be more about the NFL draft than this show. This is all obviously more free agency. Do you have a favorite draft prospect so far?
I really want to see how Josh Allen's going to do because he came from Kentucky, not like a big name school like LSU or Alabama, all those big schools. Kentucky's from kind of a small no-name school, but he really played well. I want to see how he transfers to the NFL.
Yeah. I think he's going to do well in the NFL. I'm kind of intrigued. I haven't really looked at him yet, but Paris Campbell intrigues me. I think DK Metcalf could be the next Julio Jones, but he also could be a huge draft bust. It's going to be really interesting what happens with him. But I think, again, if you want to go back to best player in the draft, I think it's going to be Nick Bosa, without a doubt. Nick Bosa is far and away the best player in this draft, but it's too easy to call him your favorite. So I'll say I'm, maybe not my favorites, but I'm most intrigued by Paris Campbell and DK Metcalf in this draft, just from a Ravens perspective, because we do need wide receivers.
That'd be crazy if the Ravens could get him.
Absolutely. Um, so this will wrap up our episode for today. We will do more episodes in the future, and our next episode will probably be more about the draft. But we are going to revive our old segment of the Nick rants to close our episode. Nick, I obviously know who you're going to rant about today.
Oh yeah,
You
oh
want to
yeah.
tell our audience what's going on?
I'm ticked off, people. I like to
Okay.
start
Why
this
are you
off.
ticked?
I would like to start this rant off with an unsettling fact
What's your
about how
unsettling fact, Nick?
1 in 5 Americans have high blood pressure. And Chris, you know that it can lead to major health complications like heart attack and like blood clots, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's startling right there.
And Dave Gettleman has the unadulterated gall to raise my blood pressure by trading Odell Beckham Jr. They trade for Jabril Peppers, a third-round pick, and a first-round pick in this draft, which is absolutely beyond me. He is on the track to be one of the best wide receivers of all time. How do you do something like that? Then Dave Gettleman signs a subpar Golden Tate for too much money, and we still haven't all the trust around their neck called Eli Manning, with a picket fence in front of him with no latch. Mr. John K. Mara, I hope you have saved all the money your grandfather has gave you, because I will not be buying any tickets or jerseys. You are no better than James Dolan of the Knicks.
James
We
Dolan.
have single-handedly gave the Browns the AFC North for draft picks. Who are we going to draft with all these draft picks? Another Eric Flowers or Eli Apple? Now, Mr. Mara, I do not want to hear from Dave Gettleman anymore. You need to explain the decision to the Nick Sparbers, to the Tom Joyce, to the Matt Weirs of the world, because you will not get another dollar from me if I do not get an explanation. You disgust me. Not only me, but the entire Giants fan base. You're an absolute joke to the NFL.
Wow. There's our Nick rant for today. Obviously on the New York Giants and John Mara, and I would like to take this opportunity to remind everybody that those are Nick's opinions and in no way reflect on me. So if you want to go after him, but don't go after me on that. This concludes our episode of Goal Line Stance Show. We'll be back in the future with an episode focused on the NFL draft in the next few weeks or so. I am Chris Linfante signing out for Nick Sparber, and I have a great day, everybody.